Hello, I'm Joseph Giunta, and welcome to the DMSO Listening Room. Our next virtual live stream, performed by members of the Des Moines Symphony, includes music from the dance and jazz worlds. We begin with living American composer and Cedar Rapids, Iowa native Michael Dougherty's Sinatra Shag. The piece was written in 1998 for flute, bass clarinet, percussion, piano, violin, and cello. It was inspired by the Las Vegas era when Sinatra, Sammy Davis, Dean Martin, and many other entertainers ruled the hotel marquees. One of the epic landmarks where Sinatra and his daughter Nancy appeared, the Sands Hotel, was renowned for its luxurious shag carpet and is the inspiration for this piece. The music is vintage Michael Dougherty, full of rhythmic drive, vigorous pulse, excitement, and bright colors, similar to what one must have felt upon seeing the Sands Hotel lobby for the first time. Next, a composer whose name may not be familiar to you, Vincent Dendi, who lived in France from 1851 to 1931. His music was admired by the composer of the opera Carmen, Georges Bizet. Dendi eventually became a student of the great César Franck at the Paris Conservatory. And when he was 22 years old, he visited Germany, where he met Franz Liszt and the great Johannes Brahms, and a few years later, he traveled to Bayreuth to experience the first production of Wagner's complete Ring Cycle. All of these opportunities made a great impression upon him. As the end of the 19th century approached, Dendi was well established as one of France's leading progressive composers, having not been eclipsed by Ravel and Debussy yet. He had won the City of Paris Prize for his Les Chants de la Cloche, and his Symphony on a French Mountain Air for Orchestra was the most performed French piece around the world at this time. In 1898, Paul Taffanel, a friend who ran the French Society of Wind Instruments, asked Dendi to write a piece for flute, oboe, 2 clarinets, 2 bassoons, and horn that could be used for various lighthearted occasions, both indoors and outdoors. The dances were born from a simple folk melody played over an ostinato accompaniment. The theme is heard 3 times, each time more brilliantly. I have a very close connection to Stravinsky's History of a Soldier. Known as a way to assess a conductor's talent, much like the Rite of Spring, I not only conducted this piece on my graduate conducting recital at Northwestern University, but was also hired to conduct it for 50 performances with members of the Lake Forest Symphony for school concerts in the North Shore area of Lake Michigan. What was incredibly challenging for me as a young conductor was to be a great source of confidence and technique building, as well as developing concentration skills at a young age. Stravinsky's Soldier's Tale is a work for the theater, described by Stravinsky to be read, played, and danced by 3 actors, 1 or 2 dancers, and accompanied by a septet of instruments, including violin, double bass, clarinet, bassoon, cornet, trombone, and percussion. The piece can also be played as a concert piece, without dancers or narrator. The work was premiered in Lausanne in 1918, conducted by the great Swiss conductor Ernst Ansermet. The piece is rhythmically complex and full of time signature changes, so much so that many conductors of the day would not conduct it. We'll play 3 dances from the work: the Tango, Waltz, and Ragtime. Darius Milhaud lived in France from 1892 to 1974. He was a highly regarded teacher and was asked by a professor friend to write a percussion concerto that he could use for examinations. The idea appealed to Milhaud, and the Concerto for Percussion was composed. Since the school had only a few musicians, the work was written for only 2 flutes, 2 clarinets, 1 trumpet, 1 trombone, and a small string section. The piece consists of 2 parts that are connected and influenced by the American jazz Milhaud grew fond of that he heard in the nightclubs of Paris. The piece was given its debut in 1930 and was instantly popular. It surprised Milhaud that it became one of his most popular pieces and continues to be to this very day. Principal percussionist Aaron Williams will be our featured soloist. The tango music of Argentine composer Astor Piazzolla is revolutionary. It changed traditional tango music to nueve tango, which incorporates jazz and classical elements into the music. Piazzolla was a virtuoso bandoneon player and often performed many of his pieces himself. He studied with the great Argentine composer Alberto Ginastera. When the fabulous pianist Arthur Rubinstein was living in Buenos Aires, Piazzolla met him and took his advice to study the scores of Ravel, Stravinsky, and Bartók. He also arose early to hear the Teatro Colón Orchestra rehearse while continuing a grueling schedule appearing in nightclubs. He first recorded Liber Tango in 1974, and it gained international appeal when cellist Yo-Yo Ma recorded it in 1997. American William Grant Still lived from 1895 to 1978 and was often referred to as the Dean of African American Composers. He was the first American composer to have an opera produced by the New York City Opera. His output was extensive and included 5 symphonies, 4 ballets, and 9 operas. His Lenox Avenue, a ballet depicting the life of blacks in New York City, is for narrator, orchestra, and singers, and was commissioned by the CBS Radio in 1937. It was transformed into a stage work the next year. Although Still wrote music that was not jazz, it was certainly influenced by jazz and intended to be performed in a jazzy manner. I have invited Professor of Piano at Drake University, Nicholas Roth, to perform William Grant Still's The Blues from Lenox Avenue, as well as Solace, written by another Black American composer and teacher, Scott Joplin. Now, Joplin lived from 1868 to 1917 and was known as the King of Ragtime. He wrote well over 100 original ragtime pieces, taught music in Sedalia, Missouri, and formed a publishing company. His music continues to be taught by piano teachers, and in the 1970s, his music was returned to popularity with the release of the film The Sting, which featured several of his rags. Following Solace, our program will conclude with Joplin's most popular piece, his 2-step rag, The Entertainer. I hope you enjoy this virtual program performed by members of your Des Moines Symphony on January 21st at 7 p.m. More information can be found on our website at dmsymphony.org. Thank you for watching.